Okay, so it is another Tuesday. It is time for another throat chakra activation session. Let's hop right in to today's episode. So here's what you need to know. Understanding the power of your words. It is very essential to you embracing yourself as a sovereign being. It is also essential to you acknowledging and recognizing where religious programming could still be operating in your life. Learning how to use the power of my words. First of all, understanding that I had power in my words, that was essential to me recognizing where religious programming was still operating in my life, even after I had disassociated from religion, even after I had left the church. The power of my words was so transformational to my liberation. Okay, why? When I start to listen to what I was saying, when I recognized that I was speaking into my life, what I was speaking into my life, not only did my soul not agree with it, but I realized that the words that I was speaking originated from the constructs that were handed to me. Constructs being the constructs of religion. I'm going to give you an example, all right? So, religion is a construct that is infused with the idea and the story that you have to suffer, that there is to experience an immense amount of hardship and struggle and drama, that is normal. Okay? That comes from religion dangling this carrot in front of you saying, hey, you may be going through immense struggle, but there is this God in heaven that is going to free you from it all one day. And if it's not while you're alive, you're going to get your reward when you die. That is the dangling carrot that I'm talking about. So, the example that I want to use is after I left religion, after I completely disassociated, I started an apparel business, okay? And the way that I talked about my own business was full of struggle. Now, I'm using this specific example to illustrate what I'm talking about. So the way that I talked about my own business, it was full of struggle. I said things like, well, it's going to take a really long time before I make money from this. I would tell myself that, building a business is so hard. It's going to take blood, sweat, and tears. I'll probably lose a bunch of money before I actually become profitable. I spoke this way about my business. I thought that way about my business. So that is how I operated in my business. Okay. Now I'm using the specific example of business, but we can apply this to anything. All right. All the things that I spoke, all of those things happened. Just like I said. Now here's the thing. I wasn't saying those words because I necessarily believe them. I was saying those words because I was still operating within an identity that struggle, hardship, and difficulty was a constant, and it had to be expected. It was to be expected. Religion still says, that suffering is a good thing because the more hardship you have, the more you're going to be blessed by that God in heaven somewhere. Okay? This causes people to speak in ways that are completely disempowering. It completely strips you from your own inherent power. I see that this very day from people who don't go to church, but that consciousness is still very active and at play in their lives. Okay? So, what happens is that disempowering speech, it becomes a part of general conversation. So that disempowering speech becomes they become conversation staples, as I like to call it. All right. So let's go back to my example, my business example. So, what are common phrases that you hear about business? Well, we can go back to the way that I was talking about my business. It's going to take a long time. I'm probably going to lose a whole bunch of money. And these are just examples. Okay. I'm not putting that out there into the universe for it to happen again, but I'm giving those as examples. So let's say that you have a business right now, or you have a desire to start one. Ask yourself, what do you believe about your business? In the place of business, because again, we can apply this to anything. Ask yourself, what do you believe about what you want? What do you believe about what you desire? Also ask yourself the question, what do you want to see happen in this thing that you are wanting to take place in your life? What do you want to see happen in your life? If you are having trouble, if you find it is a challenge for you to say exactly what you want, that is a blind spot that religious programming is still operating in your life. So, here's another example. If you're telling yourself, okay, I have this desire, but it's too big, it doesn't seem practical, it doesn't sound realistic, and you're stopping yourself from actually speaking that vision as you see it, that is a blind spot. That is a blind spot. And you can do something about it. So, what do you do? How do you get around that? How do you move the blind spot? But more importantly, how do you disintegrate it? By using your throat chakra, by using the very thing that you have been programmed to be afraid to use in the right way, in an abundant way, in a prosperous way. So you can start by doing that with the most mundane activities that you can think of that you come across in your everyday life. For example, you're going somewhere, you desire a close parking space. You say it out loud. I desire a close parking space right next to the door. And that is going to open up for me as soon as I pull in the parking lot. So what if it's a busy time of the day? So what if you're in a rush? So what if whatever store that you're going into is full? That's not your problem. Your focus is on what you desire. That is a very mundane example. And we're going to talk about this even more. You can even take your voice and apply it to the weather. Yeah, we're going to go there because we have that connection. You see how religious constructs and programming has gotten us away from our natural state as sovereign, powerful beings, that we can actually speak out words that influence the weather. Yes. Okay. So we'll save that for another Tuesday, but let's come back to this one. So with the most mundane activities, you can start to practice using your throat chakra. All right. The more that you speaking your desire becomes a habit, the more you realize it doesn't matter what people around you say or what has been labeled as realistic. So let me go back to the business example. So we've heard, with business, it's a popular thing for us to hear about, how people struggled a whole lot before they saw business success, and it took years and years and years and years to make $1 million, blah, blah, blah. People have taken those stories and they've put them into a statistic that gets handed to you. And therefore, you're made to believe that that has to be your standard. But as a sovereign being with an optimal throat chakra, it doesn't matter what the statistic is. What matters is what you say. What matters is that you know that your breath is as strong as the wind. What matters is that you know that your words can bring about change, positive change, as strong and as swiftly as the wind. All right? So you'll start to notice the power in your throat chakra to speak into water that you drink, to enchant and spell the products that you use from day to day, which we'll also talk about in another Throat Chakra Tuesday segment. Okay. So I want to leave you with this. I want to leave you with this command. My words are life-giving. My words are life-giving. I always speak words of healing, positive transformation, and prosperity. Start with that. Start with that and make it a practice in your everyday life. All right. Now, before we go, I want to tell you, in addition to this, you can go to my website. I have a book called Cast Your Spell, where I give an introduction on how powerful, using a little bit of science. It doesn't get too sciencey because you can do that research on your own, but I give a little bit of science about the power of your words and how powerful the throat chakra is as a creative, magical tool that you have, that you carry, that you don't have to work for, that is already yours. So the book is called Cast Your Spell. It is an ebook and it is available for you on my website. All right. So as soon as you hit purchase, it'll be downloaded to your email. Very easy access. I want you to check that book out. Also, to work with me one-on-one, I have a 24-session package where we'll work together for an entire year. All right, the 24 sessions have to be completed within a year, and I do that for a reason. The explanation for that is on my website as well. If you want to work with me, but you want to do it, in a one-off session, you can schedule a 55-minute session with me. That option will be available from now through mid-August. Okay. So check that out. I also have individual courses that are also transformational and will assist you as you elevate in your spiritual technology, as you elevate as a sovereign being, as you bring your magic and integrate it into your everyday life. Those courses will help you do that. All right, unleashedalchemy.com. And don't forget to come back tomorrow for another powerful episode of Unleashed Alchemy. Be sovereign